Whether you're bargaining for a better salary with your HR or talking to your friends, trying to make them eat at the restaurant of your choice, which can sometimes be even harder than the salary negotiation. Negotiation is a skill that we all use, knowingly or unknowingly. But in human resource management, negotiation is a structured, strategic, and serious topic. But I'll try to still keep it as fun and alive as possible. So, basics. Let us start with the basics. Negotiation is what? It is basically a conversation where two or more parties come together to solve their differences and arrive at a mutual agreement. So, it is a conversation. Now, imagine two kids fighting over the last piece of cake. If they agree to split it, then that is negotiation. In workplaces, though, the stakes are much higher than a piece of cake. Negotiations might involve wages, working conditions, union demands, or even long term business deals. It can be competitive, like it could result in a win lose situation, or it could result in a win win situation. That is cooperative. So, win lose is, you can say, it is a competitive situation in negotiation, and win win is a cooperative situation. Now, our goal ideally is to make the situation a win win because nobody likes a loser, especially in a professional setting. At least we should be on the winning side. That much we have to make sure that is what is needed. So, the ideal case is win win, then we don't have to worry about anybody losing on anything. Now, why is negotiation this important a topic that we have an entire unit dedicated to it? Simply put, it helps resolve conflicts without creating any enemies. It promotes understanding. Now, to create a solution which doesn't have any enemies, we have to try to be a win win negotiation, a cooperative negotiation. It has to be. Right. So it promotes such a negotiation, promotes understanding, it builds cooperation, it helps collaboration, it ensures smoother functioning of organizations, all those things. And without proper negotiation, what will happen? Even the smallest of issues can become a big dispute. Right. Moving on to the negotiation process. How does the negotiation process happen? It is not a random back and forth talking, but it is a very structured series of steps where proposals get made, they get discussed, modified, countered, and finally agreed upon. There are soft negotiations where parties avoid personal conflict and hard ones which are more like a battlefield. And then there is also the smart one, which is principled negotiation. Principled negotiation approach focuses on being tough on the issues but kind to the people. Think of it like being strict with the policies but polite with your subordinates. It's a tough combo, but it is very effective. Like that favorite teacher of yours, he or she might be doing everything according to the plan, the syllabus, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they are enforcing anything on us because they are so nice to us, right? Just like that. That is principled negotiation. Now, let us quickly look at the various steps in the negotiation process. So, the first step is preparation. In this step, what we do is we will gather all the information, we will define our goals, and we will also try to understand the other party's needs so that we can plan our strategy better. Then we will start with the opening or the introduction. We will set the tone, we'll try to build a rapport, and we will clearly state the purpose and expectations out of this whole negotiation process. Then comes the discussion. Both parties present will present their position. They will listen actively and also share their concerns and interests with the other person. Bargaining is the core negotiation step. Okay, here we have all the offers, the counter offers, the compromises, the whole problem solving aspect, right? This happen in the fourth step, that is bargaining, the most important step which is at the heart of this whole process. And then closure. agreement is reached, terms get finalized, both parties confirm their understanding and acceptance. And finally, we implement it. The agreed terms will get carried out, and both sides will follow up to ensure that they are both compliant on whatever was agreed upon. Okay, so that is the step by step process in negotiation. Now, let us talk about the negotiation models, the key models in negotiation. These are like the blueprints that help negotiators plan and behave strategically. One very popular model is by Walton and McCarthy, which outlines the steps: competitive, competitive cooperative, cooperative competitive, fully cooperative, and compromising. The idea basically is to improve communication, foster trust, and also be flexible. Because the more you adapt and respond with awareness, the more successful your negotiation will become. I have just written all the five models here for your easy reference. Now, if you remember, a few units back, we saw this Walton and McCarthy model for collective bargaining, right? In that, there were only four styles. What were they? If you remember, I'll just quickly refresh your memory. They were distributive bargaining, integrative bargaining, attitudinal structuring, and intra-organizational bargaining. We had discussed about what these were in that unit, so I'm not going into it again over here. But then here again, we are seeing the same name, Walton and McKinsey. So you might get confused. Here we are talking about negotiation. There we were talking about collective bargaining. But again, what is the major difference, right? Bargaining is the core step of negotiation here. So usually, when we say Walton and McKinsey model, we talk about the behavioral model, which focused on the functions or processes that happen during collective bargaining. Okay, we are not talking about personal styles here, but rather what is actually going on during the negotiation. That is the four different bargaining styles: distributive bargaining, integrative bargaining, attitudinal structuring, and intra-organizational bargaining. So that is like what is happening, what is actually happening during the negotiation, that kind of a model. That was a process based view. Now here, when we are again coming to the key negotiation models of Walton and McKinsey, we are seeing five different steps or five different types now: competitive, cooperative, competitive, cooperative, competitive, competitive, cooperative, fully cooperative, and compromising. So it is like we have competitive model, then we have a cooperating model, and we have a compromising model. And then in between these two, compromising, cooperative, cooperative, compromising. Like that, we have what you can say, one, two, three, four, five models here. So what is the difference? Like the key difference is, in the four types that we saw in collective bargaining, the focus was on negotiation process or the negotiation function. But here we are talking about the negotiation behavior or the negotiation style. Here we are explaining how people act or approach different deals. Okay, there we were discussing about what happens during bargaining. Here we are explaining how people act or how people approach the various deals. Okay, and so here we are trying to figure out how each party acts during the negotiation. What is the style of the negotiation? There it was what happens behind the scenes. Okay, here it is how we are acting during the negotiation. So that is the difference. Please don't confuse between them. When you talk about the collective bargaining, you talk about the four styles, but when you are talking about the negotiation model, please write the five things, these five things. So don't get confused, and please don't jumble things up and lose marks. Okay, so be very careful about it. So coming to our point in case, the key negotiation model of Walton and McCarthy. So what are these five different styles? Can you think about what these might mean? What is a competitive negotiation strategy? Competitive, we said in the while beginning itself, we saw competitive is a win lose situation. One party's win is the other party's loss. So here, each party, when they come to the table, they come with the idea of maximizing their own benefit. There is absolutely no interest about the other party's needs. എന്റെ പുര നന്നായ മതി. That is the thought here. എന്റെ പുര നന്നായ മതി. That is a Malayalam way of saying my party should win, or my party should be the best. I don't care whether you lose your sleep or you are not able to make your baby go to sleep. I don't care. My house party has to win. Like that kind of a attitude. With that attitude, if you go and approach a negotiation, you are going with a competitive mindset. Like, say, for example, a union demands the highest possible wage hike and it refuses to budge. At the same time, the management may be like, take it or leave it. It is like, വേണമെങ്കിൽ മതി ഞാൻ അനങ്ങാൻ പോകുന്നില്ല. I am not gonna come one step back. I want this. I am not backing down. If both parties say like that, it is competitive negotiation model. And the only way that we can come to an agreement or come to a closure here is when the other party decides to give up and let the other party win. Only then there is going to be a consensus. Otherwise, it is going to be a stalemate. Right. The second type is cooperative competitive. Okay. This is a little bit a mix of cooperation and competition, but it is a bit more competitive. Okay. The second part gets the stress here. Cooperative, competitive. So a little bit cooperative, but more competitive. Okay. So it is like parties are willing to talk, but again, they are still focused on gaining more for themselves. Like the management may offer a small rise, but it might want major productivity improvements in return. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a 2% salary hike, but I need to get, let's say, 20% increase in productivity. Then that is a cooperative competitive. Okay, it is like for for they'll give you peanuts and you are expected to deliver big giants like that. Competitive cooperative is the base here is cooperation. It is a blend, but the base here is, or what is the more proficient note here is cooperative. Okay, so the parties aim for a fair deal, but still they try to protect their own interest. Like the union agrees to flexible work hours if management can ensure job security. It is a both give and take, but again, very carefully. So the prime idea here also, it is like uh, there is competition, but cooperation is having the front seat here. Fully cooperative, that is the win-win situation that we talked about in the start of this lesson. Win-win is fully cooperative. So both sides aim to solve the problems together with mutual respect and openness. Focus is on common goals like joint decision-making committees or long-term agreements with shared gains. What about compromising negotiation? So it is not a fully win-win kind of a situation here, but for one thing is sure, we will avoid win-lose. Okay, it may not be 100% win-win, but definitely it is not win-lose. What is compromising in few words? It is definitely not a win-lose situation. That much is guaranteed. Win-win is no guaranteed, but it is not win-lose. So both sides make concessions here to reach a middle ground. Both will have to let go of some things and both will gain some things in return. Like union might want a 20% hike and management may offer 5%, and in between they will settle at 10%, like that. Middle ground. So these five styles, they reflect the real life negotiation behavior. Depending on the situation, the relationship, and the stakes that are there on the table, the parties may shift between these styles. So you can think of them as sitting on a scale from competition to cooperation. Okay, so it starts. So cooperation, yeah, or let's say it is competitive. It is I want to win. From that, we move on to maybe little bit, okay, I am ready to cooperate, but I want to win. That kind of an attitude. And then slowly it moves to I want to win, but I am ready to cooperate with you, to a win-win. let us both win kind of a thing. And then it is like, okay, we both can't win all together, but let us make sure that both people, I get something, you get something. Let's come to a middle ground. That is the way this whole thing progresses, you can say. Competitive, cooperative, competitive, competitive, cooperative, fully cooperative, and compromising. So one thing again, let me stress it. There is another model, same person, same guys, Walton and McKenzie. That time it was collective bargaining. It was four types. Here we are talking about the negotiation models, five types. Don't mix and match. Don't get confused during examination. Please, please, please. I'm telling you. Okay. So now, that was the negotiation model. Now, so basically, the whole idea of this negotiation model is to improve the communication, foster trust, be flexible, right? The more you adapt and respond with awareness, the more successful your negotiation is going to become. Now, you might be wondering, okay, all this model and all, Sherry, but how do I become a good negotiator? What are the traits that I should have in order to become a good negotiator, right? So what are the traits that I will need to become a good negotiator? Who according to you is a good negotiator? There are certain attributes which can make someone, if they have that attribute, can make someone successful at negotiation. Like they should be clear about their goals. They should not rush to make decisions. They should take breaks whenever they need, right? If they have a doubt, they should be able to take some break and think about it, sleep on it. And they should have done their homework thoroughly. They should be flexible, they should be respectful, they should also be emotionally calm, right? They should not start a shouting match. They should listen. They should they should be able to really listen, right? Only then you will be a good negotiator. Otherwise, do you think a very hotshot, angry young man kind of guy is going to be a good negotiator? No, they're going to get in trouble, right? You should know when to speak what. Otherwise, you might end up getting killed like that guy in Tudor. Have you guys seen Tudor? It's been a long time. That's why I thought if any of you did not see, then I'm really sorry to give you that spoiler. Anyway, I'm not telling who died. Okay. So those are the important things of a good negotiator. Talking about Tudor, for those of you who have seen the movie, others please bear with me. Do you think in that police station at that time that kid did was he good when you think about it from a managerial perspective? Do you think he was doing a good bargaining for himself? No, he was as we all are in his teen years, very very what you can say ചോരത്തിളപ്പിന്റെ പ്രായം, like the blood is boiling. So we want justice for everything. But from a managerial perspective, you think was that the right time to say the right things? Whatever he said is right, but was it the right place to say or the right time to say? No, right? So, same way. Good negotiator. Make sure you're clear, you don't rush, you stay emotionally calm, take breaks as needed, be flexible, be respectful, and listen not just to the counterparty but also to the surroundings. Listen to the room. Most importantly, they should have a, or they, good negotiators, they have a reputation for being fair and at the same time firm. They are not yes men. They don't agree to everything and then ghost you, right? They are fair and they are firm. So, in fact, you can say negotiation is much about skills, as much about skills as it is about traits. Active listening, preparation, empathy, clear communication, problem solving, emotional intelligence, all of these things are essential. You also need patience. You also need a collaborative mindset, critical thinking, and the ability to adapt midway if things are not going as planned. It is like playing chess, right? You may have a strategy, but you will still have to respond to every move. Maybe you start it as a competitive thing, but then as the tides turn, you might have to consider cooperative or even compromising. Otherwise, It is not good negotiation. Now, let us move on to the some of the guidelines that are required for for successful negotiations. What are the guidelines for successful negotiations? First and foremost, very, very, very important, leave the other side feeling like they have won something, right? If the other person feels like they have also gained something, then it is good, right? We get what we want, and we also let the other person think that they also got what they want, then it it suits that ego, and it will make sure that you don't make enemies in the future because of this negotiation. That ego massage works wonders, let me tell you. Okay, so good negotiators, they it is a good idea to leave the other side feeling like they have won something. And also, don't shy away from asking for better terms. Be vocal. Don't don't shout, but be vocal. Hmm? Be specific in your demands. And always, this is very important, always come prepared with data. Trust is vital because without it, negotiations will turn into a blame game. Also, always identify who holds that decision making power. You should know who is the elephant in the room, who is the lion in the room. All these things you should know. There is no point convincing the intern when the CEO is the one calling the shots, correct? So you should know who holds the power. So these are few of the um, what you can say guidelines for successful negotiation. So an effective negotiation needs research, it needs trust building, it needs adaptability, and it needs follow up. Now, for long term settlements, we have to this whole concept of this preparation, this research part, the preparation part becomes even more critical for long term settlements. You have to study the past agreements. You have to develop new charters of demands, collect data on productivity or any sort of grievances, and you have to anticipate the other party's pressure tactics. Otherwise, what will happen? You will end up in a losing situation. Also, keep training your negotiating team and have flexible situation based action plans ready. Okay, data analysis is the most important step here for long term settlements. You should have a strategic plan and make sure your teams are well trained for such a scenario. Okay, long term planning is like cricket. Not every ball can be a six. Sometimes you'll have to play it safe and wait for the right opportunity. So be very careful with long term settlements. Now, speaking of teams, what do you think is a good negotiating team? What makes a good negotiating team? We said we have to train the negotiating teams, right? So, what is a good negotiating team? They should have a blend of knowledge. They should have analytical skills. They should have emotional intelligence and cultural sensitivity. They should also have very strong communication skills, leadership, and teamwork. These are non negotiable for negotiating teams. Right. And also, let us not forget integrity because once your trust is gone, then negotiations are as good as over. Without trust, can you negotiate? No. Right. Now, one fascinating concept that we talked about earlier also is this principled negotiation. We spoke about how principled negotiation is like our favorite teacher at school or college. They'll get all the syllabus and stuff done. They will make us participate also, but at the same time, we will not feel like we are being forced into something or something is being forced upon us. Such kind of a negotiation is principal negotiation. So, this concept of principal negotiations was popularized by the Harvard Negotiation Project, and it is based on four major ideas. Okay, that is the first thing is focus on interests and separate the people from the problem. Okay, you have to separate the people from the problem. So it is like, yeah, maybe it is like, so it is like maybe you and your best friend are having some issues. So you come together, you discuss on it, but then don't you should always make sure that if that friendship has to last even after this negotiation is over, that you don't take it personal, right? Friend is a friend, but leave that friend aside and negotiate. And once the negotiation is over, leave the negotiation aside. Of course, you have to make sure that you follow whatever is agreed upon, but apart from that, leave the negotiation aside. Whatever happened in the negotiation, leave it in that room and focus on the person. So, separate the people from the problem. Focus on the interest and not the positions, and generate options for mutual gains. Use objective criteria to evaluate the proposals. So these are the, so there is one more, right? I should add over here, focus, no, not focus, separate people from problem. So that is the first thing, separate people from problem, focus on interest, uh, then what, generate options for mutual gains, and use objective criteria for evaluating proposals. So basically, it is all about negotiating smartly, respectfully, and also with a long-term mindset. And then finally, before winding up, let us discuss about the tactics and strategies in negotiation. What are some of the common ones? They include anticipating the other party's demands, choosing the right timing, identifying the real decision makers, adapting our style based on the situation, right? We should have a win-win mindset, but we should also be ready to walk away if the situation demands it, right? If the negotiation is not at all going in any way favorable to you, if you are thinking that you are on the losing side, means be ready to walk away from it, right? So adapt your style based on the situation. Like for example, you might be assertive in one meeting, but you might be collaborative in another as well. Never underestimate the power of follow up. Okay. A negotiation doesn't end with a handshake, but rather it continues in the implementation stage, the monitoring stage, and the relationship building stage. So, to conclude, negotiation today, it is not simply an art anymore, but rather it is a solid science now, with research based strategies, data analytics, simulation models, and even psychological insights. Negotiators are now more informed and strategic than ever. So it is not just about how you feel in a negotiation, but it is also about what you know, how you plan, and how you respond. Just like cricket has moved on from instinctive play to data driven strategies, negotiations also have evolved. And you, as future HR professional, will have to be ready for it. That wraps up our session on negotiation. So the next time you are bargaining with an auto driver or trying to get your sibling to share the remote, think of it as a practice for your corporate career. Okay, so all the best and keep negotiating wisely. Thank you.